great to see you. All of this is rooted in an idea called critical race theory. Can you give us a flavour of what that actually means and why it's so controversial?
Oh, God, where do I start with it? Well, I mean, it's a nonsense ideology that would suggest that black people, you need to be aware of the person's race, and then you must understand their race. So things like white privilege will come out as a result of that, which gives the assumption that white people are initially privileged already because of the colour of their skin, and therefore they need to acknowledge that, and therefore, in a way, understand that black people will feel persecuted. And I have issue with critical race theory on many levels. But obviously, the problem I have with this whole ideology is that ultimately it kind of it means the black person is the victim. Ultimately, it's a victimhood mentality, and for that, I find it most offensive because I don't think I'm a victim. I don't believe I should immediately think I'm a victim just because of the colour of my skin. It puts me on the back foot, and it also gives the idea that somebody is privileged by me accepting the narrative that I am a victim, and that's not acceptable by any chalk.
Nana, some would argue that you just can't be racist to white people. Do they have a point?
You can be racist to anybody. Black people can be racist towards even each other, and white people can be racist towards each other as well, as we've seen. I mean, if you look at sometimes in Scotland, you've got the SNP and some of the way that Nicola Sturgeon and some of the members of her party may speak towards people who are English. They're both the same colour, but yet they act as though they're different races. Ultimately, we are all one race, which is the human race. The idea of racism is actually it's something that's been created, and it's just divisive. There's no real reason to it, and there's no you don't really know what I am like just because I'm black. It doesn't mean that I'm going to follow any narrative that's been set aside. Anything that suggests that I behave in a certain way because of the colour of my skin is simply a stereotype and doesn't reflect anything that I have learnt or that I know. So I find it offensive that this particular performance would decide that because you are a different colour, you shouldn't come in. And that's just for one day only, though, so it's okay. It isn't okay because it sets a very, very bad precedent. Because if you can do it one way for one day, you can do it the other way round. And I kind of feel that those very people would take deep offence if you said a white-only event for one day only. That would not be acceptable.
Well, I agree. It's like Martin Luther King never happened. Nana, I've got a shocking story for you, and it's going to be really hard to repeat this anecdote, but our brilliant reporter, Ben Leo, who was out and about at this particular performance of a black-only show, and he actually pointed out your criticisms of this performance to the people at the event. And one of them said, well, Nana Akua is not a real black person because of her views.
Well, you see, that's ironic, isn't it? That suddenly the colour of my skin is no longer relevant when it comes to my views, but yet I would be allowed into the theatre performance because I'm black. It's just a nonsense, really. There is no such thing as a set type of behaviour for a black person. And actually, the fact that they've made a judgment based on the colour of my skin is exactly what I said before. Black people being racist towards black people. The amount of times I've been called a coconut because I'm supposedly meant to think a certain way because of the colour of my skin, and because I have narrowed or veered off the path or come out of my lane in their view, I'm no longer a black person. And that has to stop, because that is a pure judgment based on what you think I should be doing because of the colour of my skin. And I find it absurd. I don't look at a white person and think, oh, well, you must think this, this and this, and you're going to say that, that and that, and you will see things this way because of the colour of your skin. It's absolutely ridiculous.
We would both argue, wouldn't we, Nana, for women-only spaces, female-only spaces, and perhaps even men-only spaces. So what's different about a black-only space?
Well, I mean, one is based on the strength. So the reason why these spaces are divided initially is because women are very vulnerable when it comes to men. If you look at the murders and the rapes and the things, it's mostly the majority of it is men on women. So that's with regard to women's safety. Doesn't matter what colour you are with regard to that division. That's because of an actual thing that is there, that is a general thing, that men are just stronger than women, and the majority of murders and rapes and so on and so forth are perpetuated by men towards women. So that's why it's done like that, to protect women. Not all men are going to be violent, but it's a way of protecting women. This There is nothing in it that would suggest you can't tell if I'm going to be an aggressive black person or a very gentle one just because I'm a different colour. It means nothing.
Nana, in another example of the world of theatre going completely mad, have you seen this story? Chichester Festival in West Sussex is giving trigger warnings to audience members of The Sound of Music because there's Nazis in it. The world's gone mad.
Well, blow me down. I mean, it was set in that era anyway, so why would you need to be warned? I mean, I was reading about it, and one of the rabbis said it's just so patronising that you think that people are so weak that they will be offended by a particular production that is set in that era and be offended to find that it's in that era. I mean, if you don't like The Sound of Music or that would offend you, then you just don't buy the ticket and don't go.
Nana, I am chemically addicted to your show. Nana's back on Saturday at 3 o'clock. Brilliant to have you on the programme tonight.